Marvel Snap is a fast-paced strategic card game that blends quick, satisfying action with exquisite presentation to make you feel like a mastermind within a matter of minutes. I was barely planning on playing this game, let alone reviewing it, but the moment I played my first few matches, I knew this would be my jam. So let's get into why. Snap, in its premise, is very simple. There are 3 separate locations on the playing field, and over 6 turns, your job is to have more card power on 2 of the 3 locations to win the game. Simple, right? Well, yes and no. Marvel Snap gets players in easily with a few tutorial matches, and quickly shows off the main mechanics behind playing matches, upgrading cards, and collecting new ones, which means you're quickly launched into its 3-minute long games that will leave you always feeling like you have time for just one more go. That's right, 3 minutes is all you need, and often less, to finish a bout, which forces the game to stay basic at its premise, but it's all the better for it. The game is so easy to understand at its core that throwing a bunch of random modifiers at the wall never gets too complex, but leaves the game never feeling stale for it. Each turn provides more energy to play cards with, leading to every game being a ramp up in strategy as the player begins with simple, low cost cards and progresses onto high cost cards with sometimes wild applications. On top of this, each location in the game has a randomized modifier for every different match, ranging from give cards more or less power to things like duplicate cards played here or cards played here are destroyed. This feels almost like the special sauce to the game, as the same players with the same cards will always have a different match every time. On top of this, the game occasionally has a featured location that will show up and be more likely to appear. 2 of these locations I've experienced in the game's opening weeks were so powerful that it almost felt like game-swaying metas were popping up as players all realised what the optimal strategies were. Not only did it feel awesome to build a new deck around potentially seeing this optimum strategy playing around one location, but it also felt like there was potential to try and build counter strategies to go against the grain. It feels really fun, and it didn't outstay its welcome for me personally, as the locations only get featured for a couple of days, making it feel like its own mini event each and every time. I will say that the chances of a featured location appearing still feel like they need to be tweaked a little bit. The first couple felt like they were in nearly every single match that I played, but then the most recent featured one that came up just happened so little that it was barely worth using the deck I'd built, and I suffered from using it way more than I benefited. That is, of course, until I had one single match where everything lined up perfectly, and I ended up with thousands of power at each location instead of the usual double figures. Really, that's what Marvel Snap thrives on entirely, combining your hand of cards with situational locations and bringing it all together in a satisfying culmination. For such a basic premise, it really does make you feel like friggin' Tony Stark at times. Plus, I haven't mentioned one of the most important parts yet, and that is the titular snap mechanic. After maybe an hour or 2 of getting used to the game, it will introduce you to the concept of snapping, which is basically a way to gamble your in-game ranking to either double up your losses or gains for the fight. At the beginning of every match you play from that point on, every win is worth 1 cube, maybe like a cosmic cube, I'm not sure, but it doesn't really matter, cubes. Every 10 of these cubes gets you a rank higher. However, if either player snaps, they're forcing those points to double, meaning the opposition can quit now and lose 1 cube, or continue with the game and the wager becomes 2 cubes. A player can then further snap back to double the wager to 4, and then if all 6 turns play out within a match and it fully ends, the wager is doubled again, meaning that 1 game could be worth 8 cubes as opposed to 1. This adds yet another layer onto the madness, but it never feels overwhelming. It's just easy. If you think you'll win, press snap. Or maybe, if you think you'll lose, you can snap to try and bluff about your remaining cards. Or maybe you'll just quit early to avoid losing more ranks. It really does make those games just a little bit more intense. Plus, at least for me, it can provide a massive dopamine hit when I snap straight back at a cocky opponent and beat them in a glorious final play of the game. Safe to say then, Marvel Snap provides an excellent feedback loop in terms of its quick, addictive matches, but what about everything else in the game? This is primarily a mobile game after all, so where's the poop? This game is in early access on Steam too, but its monetization is clearly based on a mobile game free-to-play model, with a monthly season pass and an expensive storefront. While I can't say that these things aren't in your face, as it's literally on the main menu screen, I will say that so far I haven't spent any money on the game, and the only time I did actually feel compelled to do so was just because I'd played so much of the game that day that I ran low on free currency, I had no daily and weekly missions to top it up. It was just kind of on me at that point. I do say this as a person that isn't often finding themselves falling into the free-to-play trap holes though. So if that's something you are worse with than me, just be aware that most of the Season Pass unlocks are locked behind a paywall, and there are also card variants and upgrades in the store that may persuade you. When I say card upgrades though, don't feel like this game is going super hard on its pay to win with extra bonuses, upgrading your cards and everything. It's just a cosmetic thing, allowing your cards to look even more cool. Most of the basic artwork already looks extremely pleasant, but as you upgrade your cards, the artwork breaks out of the frame, becomes 3D, and then animated as well. And then each of the characters' unique logos get made shiny too. It does lead to some amazing looking cards of your favourite Marvel heroes, and almost wants me to have like somehow an actual collection of them, even though I guess it wouldn't work in real life. But they look cool anyway and I want them. It just adds that extra little flourish on top of a game that already looks and feels great to play. There are, I believe, card upgrades beyond this point, but I haven't seen what's past like the shiny logo gates, as it were. As I said, I haven't put any money into the game. I also didn't get any access to it before release, so I still have some future card upgrades to look forward to seeing for myself. Upgrading your cards does one other thing though, which is increasing your collection level. As this progresses, you'll earn more currencies to upgrade your cards further, and you'll also receive random cards along the way to bolster your ever-growing card collection. I'm currently in the early 200s in terms of ranks, and I did try to keep scrolling up with all the previews to see how far you could go before you stop receiving any benefits. However, I got several thousand levels up into the rank previews, and I figured that would be enough to keep most sane players' curiosity at bay, as it keeps going from there. So yeah, hopefully I've educated you all at this point about Marvel Snap. It's turned out to be a massively surprising hit for me so far, especially as somebody that usually avoids much mobile gaming. I hope that they can continue to provide more cool cards and locations in the future to keep everything feeling fresh. Definitely do be aware of the not great free-to-play stuff like the monetization and grindiness that you find in many mobile games, but otherwise this is an excellent game that I'd highly recommend giving a shot, especially since it's free.